Okay, guys, sorry, we're recording now, all right? So we haven't missed much, so this is where we're starting. So first, we're going to be looking at proportions. When you're thinking of proportions, you're thinking of things that are separated, right? Like, okay, if you tell somebody, I'm going to give you a portion of this, that means that you're going to give them a part of it. You understand? So we just use these terms interchangeably: a portion, a part, a proportion. So as long as you know that it's part of a bigger number, and usually in mathematics, the bigger number for us, or the whole number, so to say, is 100. Okay, so when we're speaking of proportions, like we said, you're speaking of fractions, so a specific part. And when we say, what is it? Proportion says that two ratios or fractions are equal, despite them being presented in a different way. Presented, or if it's written differently, it looks different, but it actually means the same thing, okay? It's like saying, hello and Matisa. It's in two different languages, but it's the same thing, right? Because it's a greeting. So the same principle can be applied to numbers. So when we speak of proportions, we can look at them in three ways, specifically fractions. So a fraction, we always know, is your what we call a numerator, the number at the top, over the denominator, which is the bigger number, which is the number underneath the division line. Okay, so then there we can see fraction is 25 over 100. So 25 is the numerator and then 100 is the denominator. Okay, so basically what does it mean when you say 25 out of 100? It's what you have out of 100. Okay, so you've got 100 sweets, but then you can only take out 25 to yourself for that day, for example. Another way that we can look at it is in the form of percentage. When you say, oh, I got 25 out of 100 for the test, what does it mean? You got 25%. And we know that the percentage sign looks fancy. It's like a zero and a slash and a zero, but that percentage sign basically means 100. Okay, I think that's something that we should establish right now. And then another way also of presenting proportions is in decimal form. So when you say 0 point something something, then it's over 100 still again. Okay, so when we look at our decimals, it's always important, especially when you receive a prescription from a doctor that says add 0.3 grams of the 100 mole or of the 100 milligram tube. So then now you think to yourself, what is 0.3? Then if you think 0.3 out of 100, what would that be? What would 0.3 out of 100 be? As a percentage, what is 0.3? Are you sure? Where's the decimal point? So it's 30%. Okay. So and then what is 0.03? So do you know how to convert the decimal to a percentage? You multiply it by 100. Okay. So you must think to yourself that, for example, 0.250, is it the same as 0.25? It's not the same, ne? Okay. So 0.3 multiplied by 100 is how much? Is it 30%? Is it 3%? Use your calculators. What is it giving you? Huh? It's 30%. Okay. So sometimes it can be very confusing. Now take 0.30 times 100. Take 0.30 times 100. It's 30. Take 0.300 times 100. So it doesn't matter how many zeros you put behind the 3, it will remain 30 because of the decimal point. Okay, now take 0.03 times 100. Now take 0.030 times 100. You understand? So the difference will always be the 0 in front of the number and not behind the number. Okay, and sometimes that's what confuses us, especially when working in the pharmacy. But then it shouldn't confuse you after you multiply it by 100 because it should still mean the same thing. Okay, all right. So let me quickly take this board. Ooh, Father, help us. Because, okay, guys, there in Zoom, sorry, please be patient with me because I'm going to try and see how to maneuver this so that when we do the calculations, you guys also see what is going on. Okay. Ooh, SOS.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Is it annotate or board or?
Did you share? Oh, okay. Where's your board? My dear. Anna. Sure. It's supposed to be somewhere here.
Guys, be patient with us. We are getting there. Just hold on for us.
The board isn't it this one? This one. Click on it.
No, that's somebody else.
Is that someone else?
Violet, where's the board? Sorry.
Just sometimes figure out I get it in there.
Okay, yeah.
So, but we will alert you every
Okay.
now and again if there's someone
Who's not joining? Where's the whiteboard? All right, can everybody hear me again? I'm there in Zoom. Just please give an indication on the group. Okay, so the whiteboard is now a bit tricky, especially for those on Zoom. So what is going to happen is that I cannot do the presentation and view the board or use the board at the same time. So what will happen is, as I'm speaking, you guys will be using your calculators and making notes. But then at the end of the class session, then we're going to be working through the examples that we see in the presentations. So then I will have to revert back to them again. Okay. All right, so to continue. Okay. Sorry, just bear with me. Yeah, because I want to, that is not showing here now. I don't know where I took it to. Okay. This one, the lid. To look for the. Maybe just admit all. Okay. Guys, we'll continue just now. Just quickly bear with us, please. Is it disconnected here now? All right, guys, we're going to continue. So I just want to make a request for those using Zoom, hey, please block your video, because then that will slow down your connection, and then maybe at some point you might not hear what I'm saying. So we don't need to see your background. Just cancel your video, then it will work much better, and make sure to mute yourselves at all times. So, okay, let's continue. So, okay, I think I explained enough on this page. We're going to be doing some examples later on. All right. So as I spoke about proportions, then we also said that percentages form a huge part of what we are expected to know and do in the pharmacy. So here is just an example. Okay, so the formula for percentage basically is it's your part, which is basically your answer, equals percentage times a whole number. All right. So for example, 20 is the part that you have, and then percentage of your whole. Okay, so when you speak of multiply, it's basically also denoted as off. So we can also write this in various ways, or in the three different ways that we discussed before. So if we look at A, we say that 20 is 50% of 40. That's correct, right? So when you say 50% of 40, then 20 is also a what of 40? How else would you say it? 20 is a half of 40, right? Okay. How many times does 20 go into 40? 2 times, okay? What is another way that you can use to write a half? 0.5 or 1 over 2, right? Because it's half, okay? So then we're also going to find a simpler way to write it down when we work out the calculations later on. So as you can see, we've got the percentage, we've got the fraction, and then we've also got the decimal. And that's the way that you should know how to be able to express proportions. Those 3 ways are very, very important. So it appears differently, but it means exactly the same. And this is worldwide, not only in pharmacy, but even in economics and statistics, in accounting, you name it. This is, they use these interchangeably. Just like saying, rather than saying let's say, for example, rather than saying 500,000 of the Namibian population has not been vaccinated against COVID. Let's say we're approximately 2 million, right? And then you say 500,000 of the Namibian population have not been vaccinated against COVID. But why would you say 500,000 out of 2 million people? Rather just say a quarter of the Namibian population hasn't been vaccinated against COVID. You see how much simpler it sounds, because when you think of a quarter, if you take your fingers and there are four, a quarter is 1 out of the 4, right? So a quarter also means 25%. So you could also say 25% of the population has not been vaccinated against COVID. You understand how you can say it in different ways, but it means the same thing. And you're trying to, when it comes to proportions, you're trying to make it okay. Can everybody hear me now? I hope everybody can hear me. Okay. All right. Thank you. Just quickly admitting 2 people in the waiting room. All right. Let's continue. Okay. So, okay, please make use of the chat box. If you missed something, just please put it there and then we'll get back to you. So with the classes, okay, so for example, we know everybody has been talking about oxygen machines that are being used in COVID and whatnot. So let's say there's an oxygen machine that costs 48,200, but now there is a discount offer of 20% on the machine. So how much would you be saving? Okay, so I hope we understand that whenever we run for sales and we run for discounts, we like everything on a half price or so that you can calculate how much you're going to save, how much you're going to be spending. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Second question, a nebulizer which originally cost 365 in January is now 425 in July. So 7 months later, the price has gone up. Okay. What is the percentage increase in the price of the nebulizer? So now you're going to have to calculate. Okay. It's not important. What's not important is for you to look at the decrease, but to see what is the percentage so that you know, is it really cheaper? Has the price really gone down or not? Because just looking at the numbers, you can't really tell. Yes, you can work out the difference between the two to say that, okay, this item was $200 last week. This week it's $100. But what does that really mean? At the end of the day, with that kind of example, it means that it's 50% less, right? And we love anything that's 50% less. So when looking at this nebulizer, also just keep in mind that when you're looking at the numbers, you haven't really grasped what the percentage is until you work it out. Then you know what the percentage decrease is, or the increase actually, sorry, since the price went up. Okay, and then example number 3, the number of second-year students was 88 in 2020. Now it is 65 in 2021, which means that the students have decreased, right? But then what I want to know, or what we will have to calculate later on, is what is the percentage decrease in the number of students? We know that the students are less, but we want to calculate how many students less. in terms of percentage did not apply for the course or did not make it into the course or did not get into second year. So that is something basic that we would need to look at. So we'll come back to this page later on. So let us just move on. Okay, so this is just another simplified example of proportions in the form of a fraction. Like we said, a fraction is always a denominator over a numerator over your denominator, okay? Whereby in the case you can have your numerator smaller than the denominator, you can have it equal to the denominator, or you can have it bigger than the denominator, all right? So the way we write it, I decided to put a few balls there just so that you can have a visual picture of what fractions look like. So the first one is, or not the first one, but the example says 1 out of 3. When somebody tells you 1 out of 3, do you already have an idea what percentage that is? You don't, right? But then to get the percentage, what would you have to do with 1 out of 3? You multiply by 100. Okay, great. That's what you have to do. But then also you can write 1 out of 3 as 2 over 6. Do you agree? You've got 1 over 3 and it says it's equal to 2 over 6. Do you agree? Why do you agree? What have you done there? What has happened there? When you look at the balls, here you've got 1 yellow ball, right? You've got 1 yellow ball at the top, okay? Where it says 1 over 3, you've got 1 yellow ball and then 2 blue balls, okay? In the next picture, you've got 2 yellow balls and 4 blue balls. What has happened there? What is you doubled, right? So the yellow ball doubled. The blue balls also doubled. You had 2, now you've got 4. Okay, but do you see that in total, in the first box, it's 3 balls. So your denominator always represents the total that you have in a specific set. That's why it's 3. Okay, don't look at it as 2 yellow balls at the top and then 4 blue balls at the bottom. So it should be 2 over 4. No, look at the whole picture has 6 balls, of which 2 are yellow and 4 are blue. So in total, you've got 6 balls. But out of those 6 balls, you've got 2 that are yellow. Out of the 3 total balls, you've got 1 that is yellow. And then you've got 2 that are blue. And then in the other one, whereby you've got 2 out of 6 that are yellow, you've got 4 out of 6 which are blue. You understand? Do you understand? Okay, I hope that makes sense. It shouldn't confuse you, but we will come and do calculations, like I said, just to write them down so that it makes sense for everyone. So the ratios are the same, so they are in proportion, so they are equal. It's just like, for example, having, let's say, how do I give an example of a fraction? I will think of an example that will be relatable, then we can write it down. But I just want to use a basic life example so that you can have the idea. And then when it comes down to medicines and so forth, then it's not so confusing or so complicated. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. We have an example here that we can do together right now in class. And then you guys can also write it down, or you can use your calculators. So this is an example of what proportions look like in terms of fractions. So the example is, we have 125 milligram Allergex cream in a pot of 750 milligram of Epimax cream. All right, so that's how much you have. But then if you need to, if you have a 250 milligram of Epimax cream, That means that your Epimax that you have now is less, right? So then how much Allergex do you need in that pot of Epimax cream, which is less? It means that you also need less Allergex cream, correct? Think of it in this way. You've got, I need a, sorry, I need a bottle. Give me this, Sissy. Okay. So for those in the back, let me just quickly put on the video. Maybe you'll be able to see what I am demonstrating. I know it might be a bit dark, but yes. Okay. So let's say this bottle is your 750 of Epimax, right? And in this 750, you've got 125 Allergex, all right? But then now you get a smaller bottle of your Epimax, and you need to put in Allergex in here as well. But obviously with the Allergex that you put in here was a lot more because this bottle was a bigger quantity. So then in this container, which is a smaller quantity, you will need less Allergex. Does that make sense? It's just like having an adult and a baby. The adult can consume more food than what the child can. Okay, if you eat a big bowl of rice as an adult, a child cannot have a big bowl of rice, they can have a small bowl. You understand how it works? Okay, so then in this example here that you see on the screen, what is going to happen is I've highlighted the 750 as 100, I mean as the 750 as in red, because then I want to explain that that is the digit that you would have to divide by. So what we are doing here is we're going to be cross multiplying, okay? So your X is what you are looking for, okay? So whenever I use an X or a letter or a placeholder, that's the figure that we're going to try and find or try to work out. So the reason why we put it in this format is because the 250 under the X, that's the small X. You agree? Okay. And then the 750 under the 250 is the big Epimax, right? So then what we sorry, please mute yourselves, otherwise I'm gonna have to mute everybody. Just hold on, I need to mute everyone.
See you.
Hello, Mama Lydia, Mama, see you. We are in class now. Please mute yourself. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's continue. So the way I've written it is to cross multiply. So you have to cross multiply in order to find what you're looking for. So as indicated by the arrow, I've taken the denominator of what we have multiplied by the numerator of what we have. And then I divided that by the 750 of the big Epimax so that we can work out the X that we need. So basically, we cross multiply both ways. I've just indicated with one arrow. There's a question, sorry, yes? Oh, sorry, that was a mistake. Yeah, sorry. Oops. Okay, so sorry everybody. I was focusing on the fraction-based example, so please ignore that part that says x/25 equals 125 over 750. Please ignore that part. So then once I edit the slides, I'll remove it and then we'll send you the correct slides. So please ignore that. Let's just focus on the part that is in fractions now. Okay. So then you take your 250 multiplied by 250, all right? And then you divide it by 750, and then that will give you 83.33 milligrams. And that's the amount of Epimax that you need for the smaller container, which is 250. Okay. Have we done examples like this in class before? Yes. Have we struggled before? Yes. But then we're going to go back to this so that we can also do it on the whiteboard so that you see how to actually do it. Because it's one thing to explain and it's another to actually show you. All right, let's move on. Okay, so another important thing that we're going to be looking at is also what we call ratios. Okay, so ratios we can also define as a part of 100. It's also in the form of a fraction. It's also a form of a portion. So looking at what we have here, we can express ratios in two formats, or you can use the one part to calculate the other. So if you have got your 100 divided by a percentage, so it says here, when you are told to convert a percentage into this form, meaning 1 to the ratio of x, all you will need to do is divide 100 by the percentage that you have been given. Okay, so let's take this example. Let's take on our calculators or on pen or writing, take 100, all right, wherever you are now, take 100 divided by 20%. Let's do that. So it's 100 divided by 20%. What do you guys get? You get 500. Okay, all right, so that's what you get. So that 500 is your x, correct? Yes? Okay. So let's take this first, the first part that says 100 divided by percentage equals 1 dot dot x, okay? So then you write 100 over 20% equals 1 over x. Have you written it that way? Have you written it that way? So take your take your 100 divided by 20% equals 1 over x. So what you calculated here, when you put this into the calculator, when you put the 100 over 20% in the calculator, then the answer that you got was 500, correct? What did you get? 500. You got 500. Okay, so that's how it is. So let's write this in the easier format. So let's say we've got 100 divided by 20%. Okay, so that basically translates to 100 over 20 over 100. Is this correct? Okay. Do you understand that? Okay. Then you say 100, you put it over 1. Okay. Because then 100 over 1 is 100. And then you still include your divide sign. And then you say divided by 20 over 100. It's still the same thing. Okay, it's still 100 divided by 20%. But what you're going to do now is, this looks a bit complicated. So what we do whenever we don't want to divide, then we can multiply. So what I'm going to do here is carry over the 100 over 1 and then multiply. And when I multiply, the 20 over 100 flips over to 100 over 20. You understand? It flips over to 100 over 20. So remember, one wouldn't really say division is the opposite of multiplication, but then it is the other way around. Do you see what happens here? So then you've got your 100 over 1 multiplied by 100 over 20. Okay, so you can calculate it separately here again. You've got 100 over 1 is equals to 100. Okay, 100 divided by 20 equals 5. What is your answer? 100 times 5 is? And that's what the calculator gives you. Do you understand?
Will this possibly work if you go?
The video.
Just quickly want to check that everyone can see this.
Okay. So for those on Zoom, we've done it on a smaller board. If you can see on the screen. So you understand? Okay, it's just longer. It is longer, but this is how it makes sense. If you want to do it also, a bit less complicated. For those on Zoom, I'm not deserting you, please. We will do this again on the whiteboard. You can take out that part. If you don't have a calculator, you've got your zeros here. What do? We like canceling out zeros. Okay, so you cancel out that zero, you cancel out that zero, then it's 10 over 2. Then you calculate, you think to yourself, how many times does 2 go into 10? 5 times. Then it's still your 100 multiplied by 5 to give you 500. Okay, so at the end of the day, that first format that I wrote was 100 divided by 20%, oops, sorry, 20% equals 1 over 500. That means exactly the same thing. Oh my God. It's just a different way of writing it. Okay, it's just a different way of writing it. So, okay.
You must find your way, no?
You have to find your way.
Simpler way.
Yeah, find a simpler way that works for you. But then we're going to do this again step by step.
And that's what is going to confuse you.
Yes, to showing the work. And remember, especially for your calculations, they like it when you show your work because it doesn't help the calculator gives you the right answer, but you are unable to explain how you got to the answer. Okay, because then you can get marks for your working. All right. Okay. So then let's do the second part, which is 100 over x equals your percentage. Okay. Let's do that one. Let's do an exercise for that one. That will be onto the next page. So the example that I just did now is basically the one that is under here. Okay, you're just using different numbers. So the next one is putting the ratio that you have into percentage form. Okay, so then the basic calculation here is we're going to take our 100 over x, right? And then that should equal the percentage. Okay, so when you have something like this, let's say it's 100, let's write it as a fraction. 100 over x equals your percentage, right? Does that make sense? No, doesn't make sense. But it is exactly as it is there. Okay, it should make sense. Yes, it is great. Okay, so then what do you basically do in this situation? Does anybody have an idea? Can anybody try? Remember, it's just written differently, but it means the same. Anybody that can try? How would you write your percentage there? Okay. What are we trying to find? Okay, let's put what we're trying to find is X, right? That's what we're trying to find. Okay. So then how do we isolate the X? How do we have the X standing on its own? You take it to the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so how do we do that? Huh? How do you? Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so when you take it over to the other side, whatever the rule in math is that whatever you do on the left side of the equal side, you have to do on the right side of the equal side. So then we take 100 over X, right? And then to cancel it, we have to say times X over 1, right? Okay, what we did here is what we have to do here. So then we've got our percentage here. And then if you multiply the side, then you also multiply this side. So what you've done is that here, you cross cancel, and then you're left with 100. Okay, and then here you've got X percentage. Does that make sense? Huh? All right, I hope that makes sense, because then now we're going to do an example. Make sure that it makes sense.
Are you sure? Are you sure? She doesn't understand. Exactly. Try again.
Okay, let us attempt again. Yeah, I'll show them. Okay. Okay. Yeah, accommodate everybody. Okay, so I'm going to do it on the smaller board, right? And then we're going to show everybody what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to be taking 100 / X equals percentage. So let us all read what stands there on the slide on the next page. It says, if you need to get a percentage, simply do the exact same process, but with the number given. So the example that we have there is convert one of 500 into percentage form. Okay. All right. What is 1 over 100? Use your calculators. What is 1 divided by 500? Sorry, what is 1 divided by 500? 0.2, right? But then how did you get, okay, and in percentage, how much is it? Times by 100, then it's? It cannot be. Use your calculators. So you've got 1 over 500 gives you? Okay, then times by 100 as to get a percentage. Okay, let me write it down. Okay, so you've got, it says Convert the 1 to 500 into percentage form. Guys on Zoom, I'm writing it down on the small board. I'll show you now. So you take 1 over 500, right? How much is that? That gives you 0.1 over, no, take first 1 over 500. 1 divided by 500 gives you 0.002. Okay, so like that, you have it as a decimal. Now I want that answer in percentage form. So what do you do after that? You multiply by 100. So you take your 0.002 multiplied by 100. What does it give you? It gives you 0.2. Okay. Percent. Because you multiplied it by 100, now you have 0.2%. Okay, I'm going to show the guys on Zoom now. Is that visible? I hope everybody can see. So it says there 100/x equals to percentage. So the example that we have on the presentation, it says that write 1 of 500 into percentage form. So 1 of 500 basically means 1 divided by 500. And then when you get your answer, you have it as a decimal answer, which is 0.002, sorry. And then after you multiply by 100, then you can have it as a percentage. So then that gives you 0.2%. So 0.2% is the same as 1 in 500. Is that understandable? Now, what is 0.2% as a fraction? Okay, write 0.2% as a fraction. A simplified fraction. Write it as a fraction. So you're 0.2% in the form of a fraction. Okay. 0.2% as a fraction. One over? No. 0.2% as a fraction. So think 0.2% is equal to 0.2 over 100. What do you get? Okay, for those on Zoom, I see everybody got it wrong. What I basically just did is just worked backwards. So 0.2% is 0.2 over 100. Divide like that, then you get 1 over 500. Use your calculators. It gives you that, doesn't it? 0.2% equals 0.2 over 100. And then it gives you 1 over 500. Correct? Or it gives you 0.002. It's the same thing. So 1 over 500 equals to 0.2% equals to 0.002. You understand the proportions now? Sorry. Thank you so much to those in Zoom answering. Thank you. Yes, those answers are correct. Okay. So you guys understand now, ne? That's how proportions work. We've done the percentages, we've done the fractions, we've done the decimal points. So if you get a question that asks you which one of the four are incorrect. So let's say, just hold on. A sample question would be, it's a multiple choice question, right? So the multiple choice question will ask you which one out of the four is incorrect or is not equal to the others. So for example, let's say the question will give you then 4, and then you need to choose, let's say, just hold on, I'm writing it down. So let's say you get a question like that. Okay, so the question basically says, which one, choose the incorrect answer that is not equal to the others. Okay, so you see that I've written them in different formats. All right, you've got your 0.2%, you've got your 0.002%, you've got your 0.02, and then you've got your 1 out of 500. Then you have to choose the one that is not equal to the other 3. Thank you. You understand? So when you see it like this, don't get confused. You'd have to put them all in whatever format you choose. So you can convert them all to percentage. You can convert them all to decimal. You can convert them all to fraction. And then the one that looks weird is the wrong one. You understand? So please, please, please just know that it's a different way of interpreting it, but this is how it is. Okay, I hope everybody on Zoom got it. Okay, that's a test question. All right, let's move on. Somebody says the sound is a bit low, I must speak up a bit. Okay, hold on. My volume is on 100. Next time we'll organize a mic. Then I'll perform. Okay, moving on. So we have outdone these ratios and these proportions. So let's move on to something else, which is a bit interesting. Okay, thank you, Leonora. So if you see, for example, those on Zoom, if you're struggling with your internet or so, just try to log out and log in again. You are not missing out because then we are recording the session. So, and also try to switch your Wi-Fi on and off and maybe your mobile data. Maybe there's just something wrong on your side. Okay, so let's just continue to the next slide. So now we're going to do a bit of algebra. And I think this is my absolute favorite. I love wherever they say find X, find Y, find A, find B. Okay, so I love finding things. Okay, so when we speak of algebra, like I said, with algebra, there will always be something that you need to find. So it will either come in the form of a placeholder or a letter that you need to figure out. But then the basic rule of algebra is you can't understand algebra if you do not know BODMAS. So BODMAS is what we call brackets first. Okay, BODMAS stands for brackets of orders of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. And the rules will always be, if you get a specific sum in their brackets, you first have to work with what is in the bracket. So you calculate what is in the bracket. Okay, we'll do examples as we move on. And then also orders speak of your powers or your square roots. Whenever you say, what is it? Whenever you say, ooh, Maggie and Nelao, same WhatsApp group. It's like saying Maggie squared will give you nelago, or magi and nelago are the same. So when we speak of square roots, or when we speak of powers, it's always a number to the power of another number. Okay, so we're also going to do a few of those examples, and then we're going to break it up so that you don't get confused. And then when we speak of division and multiplication, usually with the BODMAS rules, those are the things that you calculate first, whether there are brackets or there are no brackets, and it's always from left to right. Okay. On paper, please, not Muslim way, it's left to right. Okay. And then also when it comes to addition and subtraction, then it's also left to right. So we're going to move on to the next slide, where we will find some examples and some further explanations. Okay, so like I said, algebra, you deal with BODMAS. So first we're going to be looking at division and multiplication. So your division, we can see there is an example. So it says 4 times A equals to 8. So what you're looking for is your A, right? So then that's just a simple way of how you can get your A. So there are different ways of writing this. So you can write either 4 times A equals to 8, but in algebra, we hardly make use of the times sign. So you just take the times sign away, and then you put the 4 and the 8 together, and mathematically that would make sense. So then it's saying 4 next to A equals to 8, or you can say 4 open bracket A close bracket A close bracket equals to 8. So I'm just going to show the people on Zoom. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. So you see there, it all means the same thing, but it's written in a different way. Okay, so you can have it as 4 times A, 4A, 4 open bracket A close bracket, all equal to 8. The main focus is